This is the Forbes Books Podcast, conversations with amazing humans who are impacting the world of business and beyond. Hola, I'm Joe Pardavila. And did you know that you don't have to go to school to get a business degree or an MBA? You can just be a college athlete. Since July of 2021, student athletes have been allowed to make money from their name, image, and likeness, or NIL for short. They've leveraged social media and their athletic ability to sell sponsorships, sign brand deals, and make big bucks. If you're a top quarterback, industry analysts say you can earn anywhere from $500,000 to $800,000 a year. And it's not only football. Athletes in everything from gymnastics to lacrosse to track and field are making a pretty good living while studying. Today, I'm joined by one of them, volleyball player Allie Batenhorst. Allie was a National Player of the Year in high school in Texas, played 3 seasons at Nebraska, where she helped the Cornhuskers to 2 NCAA runner-up finishes, and now she's heading to USC for the 2024 season. We're going to discuss how she got into volleyball, what it was like going to school during the pandemic, and what a day in the life looks like for a professional college athlete. Allie, how you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm awesome. So I want to start by talking about a love of sports. So this past weekend, my good friend, his kid plays Little League Baseball, and I went there to give some moral support. Mind you, Allie, I was terrible in sports, so I don't know anything about sports tips or make the kid better at playing baseball. But I watched him, and Allie, he was miserable. He didn't seem like he was enjoying it. He was like dragging his feet to get off the field. I felt so bad for the kid, and afterwards I said, "Hey, are you okay? Is this like miserable? Would you rather do something else?" He was like, "No, it's not." And I guess, most kids, they don't have the self-awareness to realize that, yeah, maybe they are miserable, but don't know it. But tell me about how you fell in love with volleyball.
Well, I actually started off as a dancer, believe it or not. Yep.
Oh.
Super crazy. My mom was like a pageant girl, dancer type of thing. So that's where I actually began. And then my dad was an athlete. He played basketball and track in college. So he kind of introduced my older sister to basketball. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to copy my sister. So I quit dance, became a basketball player. And then once I got to 3rd grade, 4th grade, I was also introduced to volleyball. I can't remember how, but I think my parents just threw us in a league. And immediately as I started playing volleyball over the couple of years and basketball, I was doing both at the same time. I started to realize I actually hated basketball practice, but I love volleyball practice. But once I got to 8th grade, I kind of realized that was something I wanted to pursue. And I got kind of tall, so that was a bonus.
Helpful.
I'm 6'4". But yeah, so then after 8th grade, I quit basketball and I just did volleyball. And as soon as I kind of committed to that and put all my time into that, that's when I started to really enjoy it. And once opportunities kind of opened up, it was just super fun.
And what was it about volleyball? Because just to give you a background. So I grew up in a suburban town in New Jersey where basically we were lucky enough to have all the sports. So in the fall, you could either do football or soccer. Winter, it was, basketball. And I think it might have been cross country or whatever. Growing up in Texas is a sports haven. I'm sure you could have played 1,000 different sports. What was it about volleyball that sucked you in? Because obviously, like you said, you were growing, you were kind of fitting the physical model of a volleyball player. But what was it about the sport that made you love it so much?
I obviously it's super competitive, but I think when I was comparing it to basketball, when I would play basketball, I was super skinny. So I would hate the contact of it. And it was not my thing. And volleyball, it's just every play's so different. And it's cheering after every point is so much fun. And it's just this different environment that I just really fell in love with. So.
Wow. And you're very humble about this, but you turned out to be a really freaking good volleyball player. When did you realize that you were really good? Because that's the thing. You mentioned you're competitive, and I'm sure you're surrounded by competitive girls. Did you have, talk about self-awareness, did you have the self-awareness where you're I'm pretty good at this? Or were people saying Allie, by the way, you're kicking ass out there. Were you aware of how good you had become?
I don't think it was until I got my very first offer, collegiate offer, that I was oh wow, I knew I was pretty good, but I was also maybe I'm just tall, whatever. My actual first offer was from Nebraska, and I was at 14 years old. John Cook was actually at my court, and we were playing for the gold championship, 14 national, whatever. We ended up winning, and then I remember a few weeks later or weekends later, he called me and then offered me a scholarship, and I was oh my gosh, I'm actually pretty good at this.
Wow. And just to give folks context, how rare is that to get offered a scholarship so early in your high school life? Because me growing up, I'm going to make a lot of Gen X reference here, Allie. So me growing up, you didn't get that colleges check you out until junior, and then if you're, unless you're really good, and then senior year. Is that a thing now where universities are now scouting athletes early on in the game?
So in the past, whenever I was in middle school, at that time period, they had started recruiting kids really, really early. So like that was like the norm was you had college coaches surrounding your court in like 7th grade. And it was just, that was just very normal if you were like one of the top players in your class. I think they kind of realized that that was becoming a problem because I remember being all these phone calls and I was like, they're like, so what's your favorite food? And I was like, like sushi. Like it was just like not productive. And like, it was great and everything, but it was also like really intimidating talking to a college coach when you don't even know what you want in your life at that point. I think the NCAA kind of recognized that, and then they changed the rules to where you can't talk to colleges now until I think it's your junior year. Like, officially communicate with them. And it was just so different back when I was getting recruited. So that's like not the norm anymore.
Yeah, to me, it sounds, I don't know how familiar you are with European soccer, but that's like these like big clubs are like signing kids at like birth, like they're giving. So it was like to hear that you're doing that in volleyball. That's crazy.
Yeah.
And those conversations where you're getting pitched, like when I was like, I'm barely smart as a middle-aged man. When I was 14, I was an idiot. How did you deal with that?
I don't know. My parents helped me a lot because I remember my first college call. I remember like sitting in my Spanish class and looking at the email and I was like, oh my gosh, I have to make a call. And I was like really nervous and I was like, what do I even talk about? Like, and then it was super natural because my mom was on the phone with me a lot of the time. And that kind of helped ease me into being able to be by myself. But I didn't know what I wanted. Like I was just kind of getting to know these coaches and like kind of seeing the opportunities and what they saw in me and the potential they saw in me. So I guess it was just more learning at that point. But my parents wouldn't let me commit to any school until I was like in high school.
Oh, good. So why Nebraska? Why? Because you're a kid from Texas. Obviously, there's probably a lot of options in Texas. I know Nebraska is known for their program it's very successful. But what was that it? Was it just the program was just so good?
That was one of the main factors. But so I was actually born in Omaha, and then we moved around a little bit, and then I ended up in Houston at like 3 years old. So I grew up there. That's all I kind of remember. So like I am from Texas. So majority of my family, my extended family, my grandparents, my cousins, like all of them live in Nebraska. So I've kind of grown up coming back to Nebraska every year and just like it's also like a second home for me. I already had my family there and stuff like that. And then they were also a top program. And then when I visited, I like immediately fell in love with the culture and the people, and the coaches were really great. And the girls in my class, so I had actually played USA volleyball with them. And I was like really close with them whenever we were at these training camps for hours on end. And they were like all committed. So I was the last person in my class to commit. And they were all like, Allie, you have to come. And these were my like best friends, like forming my best friends at this point. So everything kind of fell into place. I already loved the culture. My family was there. I'm kind of from there. And like my best friends were going there. So I was just like, you know what? Like I did it. And it just like felt right. I don't know how to explain it, but you kind of just have a feeling and you like kind of know where you want to go.
That's got to sound so intimidating, though, just because even though you still had some roots in Nebraska to just uproot and go across the country, was there homesickness at that point? Because I guess by that point, you were probably doing a lot of traveling with volleyball and all that. So you were getting around. But like the idea of being permanently away from your family, was that a tough transition?
Yeah. So I don't know if you know this. I graduated high school early and I came to Nebraska in January. And that was like the height of COVID. So it was like 2020, whatever,
2020. Yeah.
2021. Yeah. They had actually moved the fall. So volleyball season's usually in the fall and they moved it to that spring. So I entered college, like starting the spring training season. Like it was just so weird. COVID was so odd. Like I couldn't meet anyone. We were forced to just sit in our dorms. Like we had to wear masks everywhere we went. And like, that's obviously hard when you're transitioning from like high school and like going to somewhere where you have no clue who anyone is. And like, you're not allowed to socialize either. So it was pretty challenging, but the girls were all really accepting. And like I said, like there's so many great women on the team at Nebraska, and it was just like a really fun culture to be a part of. So it made the transition pretty easy. And I already had, like I said, some of my best friends were my roommates.
So you're an 18-year-old kid, the pandemic's going around, you're locked in your room. Without getting off topic here, but like, what is college life like during the pandemic? Because I think now for most people, that might as well be olden times, like 2020, even though it's only 4 years ago. Was it just like sports and studying? Was there a social life? What was that like in those early days?
So we were obviously in season. So the social life was especially like we were not allowed to be around people because you didn't want to compromise our ability to play. yeah, it was literally just wake up, go to lift, and then like come back to the dorm and then do it all again. So I mean, it sounds monotonous, but like it's kind of what we were stuck with doing. But there were some good parts to that season too. It was a really interesting experience, and grateful. I'm still grateful. I graduated early because I got tons of training, and like being able to go right into college and being right in season, but not really being eligible to play. So you're just training and just kind of getting that under your belt before you actually are eligible is kind of cool. So
That's so cool. And I mean, I can imagine the bonding of the team is pretty instant, right? It's all you guys are in the same boat. You're like, we can't do anything else but play volleyball and go to school. And you're the only people I'm technically allowed to be hanging out with.
yeah, no, it was just us together. So we all got really close. Let's just say that.
Yeah, I bet. All right. So you just graduated from the University of Nebraska. Congratulations. But your college career is not done. You are transferring to the University of Southern California. So for the uninitiated, I know for many people, they hear about this transfer portal and kids leaving schools all the time. Why was it important for you to squeeze another year of playing sports? Because you technically, you can kind of just go and do what Allie wants to do after college. You got your degree ready to go. Why was it important to you to continue your education?
So I have a lot of things that I kind of want to accomplish after volleyball. I think obviously I do want to play pro, and I think I'm obviously going to USC to play indoor, and I'm playing beach as well. They have the #1 communication school in the nation, and I think, and that was my major here at Nebraska, and I kind of want to maybe pursue broadcasting and I don't know, like making podcasts and doing stuff like that. I kind of want to enter that kind of world. So that was kind of something that always interested me, and I've always wanted to move out to California and kind of experience life there. And I met a bunch of the girls previously, and they were really cool. And yeah, I don't know. I've just kind of wanted a new opportunity. And I obviously, like I said, want to pursue broadcasting. And I know there's a lot of opportunities out in LA. And
Worry about that. Yeah, they got a lot of open and something.
yeah, I'm super, super excited. And it kind of worked out being able to graduate and then have 1 full year there and play indoor and beach. And I don't know if you know this, my old coach from Nebraska is actually now the associate head coach there too. So,
oh, okay. So it was a package deal that went over there. That's good. So let's talk about this now, because we mentioned how sports has changed. You even in your lifetime, how college sports has changed. We mentioned the transfer portal, but also during your stay at Nebraska, NIL happened. The name, image, likeness phenomenon that folks, if you're not familiar with, basically now college kids can make money off their likeness when they're play sports. And if I'm not mistaken, you got in there right when NIL started, right?
mm-hmm.
Because I know the idea has been discussed since I was a kid, Allie, the idea of paying athletes. So when you walk in the door and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, by the way, you could also make money without you having to get like a side gig or something like that. When you get there to college and all of a sudden they say, oh, by the way, now you can make money off whatever you do. Was that weird? Were you guys prepared for this? Just take me back to like those early days of NIL.
So when it first started, I was kind of like, I don't really know what this means for me, because I obviously came to Nebraska just wanting to play volleyball and be the best I could be. I really had no idea that I was going to be able to make money and kind of gain this platform on social media. I remember we were all like, oh my gosh, like now we can like do whatever we want. Like we would kind of get direct messages and like free sweatshirts through the mail, or like, and that's kind of how it all started. But one of the seniors, Lexi Sun, she had already kind of had a big following. So she kind of created her own merchandise. And that was like the first thing I ever saw of it. And I was like, oh my gosh, like that's so cool. She probably makes so much money. Like that's, so impressive. And I was obviously a freshman. So I was like, I don't know how I'm going to be able to capitalize on this yet. Like, I don't really have anything to do. Like, I haven't played yet. So, yeah, I mean, it was just super cool. And it's grown so much over the years. And, like, at first, like I said, it just started with getting free sweatshirts in the mail and, like, stuff. And now it's, like, you have people on billboards and people making their own merch and, like, all this stuff that's just kind of growing continuously. And, obviously, it has a big impact on, like, the transfer portal as well. And, like, even other sports are getting so much money and being paid to go these places. And it's grown tremendously. So it's really cool.
That's awesome. And so, and I love the fact that now, because it was always weird that these universities were paying coaches like $20 million and then firing him and then paying them $20 million still, but the kids were getting nothing. So I always felt like you guys should get a little piece, but it does appear that it's a bit of a Wild West, because essentially the NCAA has been very hands off. They basically said, do what you want to do. So schools are either finding backdoor ways to pay kids through alumni and everything like that. So it is the Wild West. and I'm sure it's especially like you mentioned, other sports. I think there was a report that some of these athletes that were going from college to pros were taking a pay cut, because they're making more money. Because when you get to the pros, there's like there's like a league minimum that you have to deal with. Like, I think there was a report that Caitlin Clark would have been better off staying in school and do another year of Iowa than going to the WNBA because the salary was going to be so low. That's all very weird. But as someone who's experiencing it, a big part of it is social media, because a lot of these brands that want to get into business with these athletes are looking for some sort of, I guess, publicity or marketing that you could be a part of. So how did you incorporate that into all while you're studying, you're playing volleyball at a high level, and you're trying to like wrangle NIL deals? What was that like?
So it was actually pretty crazy because I never, like I said, I never expected to gain all this following and just kind of be having this influencer presence over the past few years. Like, we made it to the Natty, and Nebraska's always had like a history of like having tons of fans, and just there's so much support here unlike anywhere else in the nation. And I think once we made it to the Natty and like all this stuff, my followers just kind of skyrocketed. And I was just like, oh my gosh. And then I kind of got these emails of like companies wanting me to represent them. And then I kind of got super, like, I started to have fun with it and started making some creative content that was kind of like goofy and weird. And like, and it kind of like started to go viral. So then I started kind of growing on TikTok a lot. And then these companies wanted me to make TikToks for them. And then recently I did one with Victory Insoles, and my average posts with like 2.5 million views. Like, it started blowing up, like, just because I was making these. So it's super fun. And yeah, like I said, I just kind of never expected for any of this. And now I'm kind of being able to capitalize on it and do a bunch of marketing for all these brands. And it's been a lot of fun too. So I met a lot of cool people doing it too.
I bet. And I wonder, because you mentioned your dad was a college athlete, is it weird for him to see his daughter be like, wait a minute, you're a business person and a volleyball player? How does he work? Has he weighed in on this at all?
Yeah, no, he loves it. And honestly, he's helped me a lot with like managing everything financially. And I started an LLC my freshman year. So that kind of,
That's so awesome. It's so freaking weird.
Yeah, it's so weird. I was like, what's an LLC? Like, I'm a business minor. So now but no, he's helped me a lot. And it's just kind of, I've been able to grow from it too. And he's just kind of really proud of me for being able to manage all this kind of by myself. And I've kind of been able to understand the financial world early, like now that I'm going into the real world soon. So it's been pretty cool.
Yeah, no, I think it's as much as people were so afraid to pay college athletes, the intangibles that you are all going to learn, because essentially, if anyone, like you mentioned, you're getting a free sweatshirt in your DMs. If an athlete prior to NILs was found out they got a free sweatshirt, could get suspended for accepting that. So it's just so, we all know the Reggie Bush story about they ripped the Heisman away from him because his parents got some money from the college alumni and everything, and now they gave it back to him. So it's amazing how in just a little bit of time, we went from like making sweatshirts illegal to now athletes in college making millions and millions of dollars.
So fast.
And Nebraska, obviously known for their football, outside of their volleyball, of course. Have you crossed paths with some of these football players and be like, wait a minute, there's a kid who's driving like a Ferrari or something? Like, is it weird to see that too? Even though you guys have all done it at the same time, that some of these kids are making some big bucks.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And yeah, tons of the guys on the football team have like new cars, and all these like random brands are sponsoring them. And I've actually done some deals with some of the football guys. It was like this bank I did a photo shoot with, and football guys were there. And then also we had these like 1890 was like a big thing for us. They kind of helped navigate NIL for all the athletes here in Nebraska. And I'd see all these football guys signing a million things and doing all this stuff, and they get these huge deals, and they'll be on billboards too. And yeah, it's pretty cool. Like, everyone's been able to capitalize on it.
Well, talk about social media, and I know you grew up in a more savvy internet generation as opposed to the millennials and my Gen Xers. How savvy were you leading up to your days as a collegiate athlete? And the reason I bring this up is because if you look at anyone probably over the age of 30, they probably didn't think about, hey, one day someone's going to be able to look at my tweets or look at my TikToks. Were you super savvy in that, where like when the NIL came in, like, oh shoot, do I have to delete a couple things that I might have put out there? Or were you just were aware of what the game was being played?
This is actually a fun fact. I actually hated taking pictures when I was younger. And like, I did not participate in a lot of social media, and like, because I just was like, I feel like I don't look cute in these pictures, or like whatever. And I was not super active. I've never really been that active on Twitter or anything. So I've never really had to worry about any of that. But my two roommates used to make fun of me freshman year of college. They were like, you never want to make TikToks with us. I'm like, I just feel awkward. I don't know how to dance, like whatever. And then I'm obviously at the point where I have like thousands and thousands of followers on TikTok now. So it's just like been this huge jump. But yeah, no, I was not very invested in it. So freshman year, they kind of told us this thing called Open Doors, and they were kind of introducing NIL to us. We were having all these meetings about how we're supposed to use our brand and expand our platform. And I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to try and post like all the time and like whatever. But at first I was like, I don't know if this is good. Like I was very just kind of trying to understand it and navigate that. So I've grown a lot over the past few years.
Wow. And how rare are you? Were you an outlier in your team that you were like the one kid who's like, yeah, I don't want to do TikTok. Were you the only one like that on the team?
Well, actually, a lot of the older girls weren't very big into TikTok.
Oh, okay.
But, like, I think the age gap was, so my freshman year, I was 18 and some of the girls were like 24. So the age gap was pretty big and they were not super into TikTok, but they were into Instagram. So I think over the past few years, TikTok's kind of blown up. So it's a lot different now. Like you see our freshmen now, like they're all super into TikTok, like making more TikToks than I ever have. And I'm like, whoa, like, it was just a complete different, age group. So.
All right. So let's talk about how you manage this going forward. And what I mean by how you manage is like, is there a Batenhorst team? Is there people involved now? Because I'm sure at first it was just you. You were just doing everything yourself. Maybe maybe your folks were getting involved, but like, how do you manage this going forward? Because you have dreams of doing other things, and this can be a job in itself.
Yeah. So obviously my parents are big help for me, but my mom's kind of been more of like a manager type of thing. And then last year I recently signed with a manager. Her name's Christina. She's great. She's been helping me so much, and she kind of helps me navigate all these deals as well, and kind of does the businessy part of it for me too, and the communicating with all these businesses. So it's been really helpful. And I've kind of been talking to some talent agent in LA type of thing. So I've kind of trying to navigate what people I'm going to help or that are going to help me kind of figure out how to manage all of it. Cause it is a lot, especially when you are playing sports and trying to do school at the same time. So, but it's been super helpful having Christina, my parent.
All right, just a random thing. Everyone kind of knows, even if they're not into TikTok, know that Olivia Dunn has just blown up on TikTok, and she's obviously very successful with the amount of followers. And for me, who just doesn't understand like what makes someone super popular as opposed to just popular on TikTok, for you as someone who's very popular on it, what separates Olivia from these other folks that are doing it? Because you're all beautiful people. You're all very talented. You're all, creative in your own way. Like, what do you think separates them? And I know it could just be sort of something like secret saucy, intangible stuff, but what do you think separates those huge stars on social media as opposed to the folks that are just doing pretty good or just popular?
I would say there's a lot more that goes into it. It's honestly hard to keep up with all the content sometimes. And I think they do a really great job of monetizing their brand. There's certain time periods and certain type of content that's really popular and trendy at the time. And I think if you really capitalize on those moments that things are trending, you can get a lot of views and a lot of followers. And there's definitely a strategy that goes to it. And I think if you are good looking and talented and have all those things and you're pretty good at monetizing yourself, then you'll have a better chance of going viral. Yeah, I think that's probably it. I don't even know, to be honest. I think she's blown up like crazy, and like that's insane, and like it's so great for her. But I think she's just really good at posting a lot and doing the right things influencers do.
As someone who doesn't do it, it seems like it could be exhausting. Like it's because the fact that there's no off switch. Like you have to be, like you said, looking for whatever's trending. If there's a goofy dance going on at the moment, you got to go and do that one. How do you take a break from that though, Allie? Because I know it's obviously a big part of how you're making money. It's probably a big part of what you're going to do for the rest of your life. How do you separate online Allie and volleyball Allie from just Allie who wants to chill and just watch, Netflix, watch Baby Reindeer all weekend or something like that? How do you separate that?
So I would say I've kind of built it into my like school works, like homework kind of schedule, if that makes sense. So I will kind of set aside time to do my content and kind of edit things. And like, I will just prioritize that in my day so that I can kind of plan out time to just be by myself and like hang out and do whatever. So I don't know. It's all about time management, and just kind of like you manage school and sports, you just kind of have to add that into it.
Are there times for just being brain dead though? Because I know as a college kid, on the weekends, and you got no job, I'll sleep till like 3 o'clock and do nothing. You honestly can't do that.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes, like, there's been a few times, like, even after, like, school just got out, like, I have been kind of lacking. I haven't posted in, like, a few days.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I know.
Not the least.
I've been catching up, but sometimes it is hard to keep up with, especially when there is a lot going on in your life. But I think during season and, like, during the off season, you kind of get into the routine of things, so it's pretty easy. But it's, like, in these transition periods of, like, I'm moving and all this stuff, it's been kind of hard to keep up with. But, you figure it out.
It sounds like you did. All right, and lastly, many, many years ago, I don't know if you remember the name Brandy Chastain from the women's soccer team in the 90s. They were like it was like the Mia Hamm soccer team, and Brandy Chastain was the girl who kicked the game-winning goal and ripped her jersey off, and she had that legendary shot on Sports Illustrated. So I was a young radio reporter in New York when that happened, and I'd gone to an event that they were doing in Nike Town. And at the time, Al, it's going to sound weird, and you may want to look this up later. It was controversial that she ripped off her jersey to expose her sports bra after she scored the goal. So it was like this big phenomenon. Like, it was the cover of Sports Illustrated, worldwide newspapers covered it, but there was like a backlash of like, why is this woman taking off her jersey? And I went to this event and people were asking her this question, but I decided to take a different angle. And I said to her, one of these days, you're going to be walking down the street, Brandy, and you're going to see a girl wearing a Brandy Chastain jersey. How are you going to react to when you see that? And she, Allie, no joke, broke down in tears because she hadn't thought about it. She was so much thinking about the World Cup and the controversy that surrounded it. And the fact that the idea of a little girl wearing a brand, again, Allie, I know you're too young to realize this, but like in the 90s, the idea of a female athlete being a star was just like an alien dropping down on top of us while we're talking to us. So what's it like being this female athlete in 2024 where you do have girls who want to be the next Allie Batenhorst? Like, what is that like in helping the next generation of athletes come behind you? Because I know for Brandy, it was one of those moments where you're like, oh shit, everything that I've done led me to this, and now it's going to lead to the next generation of girls following behind me. So tell me about that next generation and how, the role you're playing in the kick-ass volleyball, but also in social media to help the next generation.
Yeah, I mean, it's grown so much, especially this past year. I've had little girls come up to me and like they're like sobbing their eyes out just to like meet me, and it's like, oh my goodness, I just feel like I'm not even deserving of that, but it's just so amazing to see all these little girls. But I think we also see that in the stadium game, Memorial Stadium game, Volleyball Day in Nebraska. That was just such a huge pivotal moment for women's sports and like breaking the world record for attendance. And I think that day I was just kind of like, wow, like this is really incredible. And it's something I would just love to be a part of, just advocating for female athletes, because we all work so hard. And like, I don't feel like female athletes get the recognition they deserve. And, I think just this past year with Caitlin Clark as well, she's brought in so much viewership and attendance for women's sports, and the WNBA too is kind of blowing up. And it's just been truly incredible to see all these women like getting all the attention they should deserve. And I think me kind of being a part of Nebraska volleyball and kind of getting to see that and seeing how much appreciation we've gotten this year has been really amazing. And it's something that I just want to see continue to grow. And like you said, seeing little girls in my jersey is just like unreal and something I never imagined. And I think with whatever I end up doing in my future for my career, I definitely want to continue to be a part of like that growth for women's sports for sure.
Wow, that's so cool. Well, it looks like you're ready for it, Allie. No matter what's going to come your way, you got to get going on the TikToks. Not that I'm your manager, Allie, but come on, let's go. You got to make money.
Yeah, I know. I just want to
make donuts.
Can't be slacking. You're right.
Allie, it's been a great chat. Thank you so much for joining me today. Have a great rest of your day, and good luck next season with USC.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you having me.
And that'll do it for another Forbes Books podcast. Don't forget to leave a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify and hit subscribe so you don't miss any new episodes. You can always connect with me on X, LinkedIn, and Instagram at Joe Pardavila or TikTok at J Pardavila. And please don't forget the golden rule and treat others as you want to be treated. Thanks for listening. Until next time, adios.